Today's conversation on steps is a great one. I'm joined today by Mitch Sadowsky. He's a former high-level volleyball player and coach, business owner of Eritas Performance. He's a husband, a father, and most importantly, a really rad dude. Let's get into the conversation. Dude, so Mitch and I were just talking. We were actually prepping for our conversation, and we got on topic of something really cool. Mitch, I want to come back to it. And I think it's important for us to start out of the gate. We were talking purpose and like our stories and stuff, but like you got on a not on a tangent, but the path of like talking purpose in the role that you're in life. And I want to kind of come back to it if you're good with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny. I think as I've gotten older, I'll joke that I probably haven't gotten wiser, but like what your purpose is sort of redefines itself. I've probably felt like I had a couple of different purposes, and I've always kind of come back to the same theme and the same one. But I was talking to some other strength coaches, and it was funny because the fight that we have internally is my purpose is my family. And, how do I take care of and make sure that my family's taken care of? My wife, we got two little kids, our daughter's almost 4 and our son just turned 2, is how do I provide a better life for them and provide something different than I had, when I was growing up. And in order to provide those things, I have to work more. And in order to work more, I have to be away from my family. And it's a really weird juxtaposition. We're always trying to find a way to, sort of duplicate ourselves so I can be in two places at once, and I can do what my calling is, and I can still be with my family. I hate when I have to tell our kids that I got to go to work. And it's something that I want to do. I want to go to work. I love what I do. But then, I see my daughter say, Dada, why you go to work? And it's hard to explain to her why we have to be gone. And, obviously being a strength coach, I'm extremely, extremely fortunate that when I want to, and when I decide to, my kids are coming to work with me. I want them to be in a physically structured environment. I want them to see weights. I want them to see people being healthy. I want to see them getting strong. And, I want strong kids. The world needs more strong kids. And it's a way for me to be with them. But, I guess on the other side of that, I can't fully be with them. I have a commitment to my clients to give them 100% of my attention. And I can't always do that when I have a 2-year-old boy who tries to jump off of everything. Yeah. And if he's not jumping off of something, he's trying to hit it with something else. And then, be present for our daughter. So it's a really weird, like I said, it's a weird juxtaposition of how we balance all of those things. But I think that's also just where we are is trying to find that balance and have almost a dual purpose in our life.
Well, you said something. You said purpose. You used purpose, right? Family being purpose, and then you said then you used the word call, right, or calling. And I think that it's interesting if you reflect on it, right? You can have a purpose, and then your call on your life can be something a little bit different. Provided it I think the roads lead back to the purpose. But like you're setting the example for your kids, right? Again, anybody that knows me, right? I'm a father as well. Our daughter's 7.5, almost 8, and then our son is 5, right? Like, and for the past 2.5 years, I've been at home with them for the most time, doing, operating in a stay-at-home dad mode and kind of doing things here. But they're like, when my wife leaves for a work trip, she's like, well, they get upset and they don't want her to be around. But like, look, this is what I'm doing for our family. This helps provide the things that we have and the greater kind of calling on our life. And I think that that's the interesting thing is, it's the fine line of being the example and then also articulating it in a way that they can kind of understand and receive to then set them up for long-term success too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the challenge is I think with your kids, it's easier to explain. I think with our kids, they just know that dad's gone and they know that mom's gone. And You can't be present if you're not present.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually been even trying to do a better job. I'll admit I'm not great at it yet, but being present when I am present.
Yeah, how do you do that? Because again, like I think that everybody struggles with that, right? And again, whether it be as a husband, a father, or just a person, but like how do you kind of quantify that for you? I mean, again, like what's that look like?
I will be the first to admit it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
I've always been a very as scatterbrained as I can be. I've always been really focused and driven. Like when I see an end goal, I really want to get to that end goal and then decide what's next. And as a parent, I have to have both a toggle and a dimmer switch so that when I'm on, I'm on. When I'm off, I'm off. When I'm working, I'm working. When I'm down, I'm down. And sometimes those things have to blend together. When I do
Mm-hmm.
FaceTimes with my online clients, it is I can't say it's a normal occurrence, but it's probably pretty normal for one of the kids to be on my lap
Mm-hmm.
while I'm coaching somebody. It's uh, pretty normal for me to get up real quick and get them what they need, and then come back and sit down. When I'm writing programs, uh, same thing. I'm trying to stay as focused as I can on that. But if one of our kids jumps on my lap, I will program while they're on my lap, or I'll just put my computer away and when they go to sleep, if I they go to sleep and it's 9:30 at night, I get up and I work from 9:30 to midnight or till 1 a.m. Like whatever we need to do to get that done. I know that sleep's going to take the sacrifice, but you know, if it's not every night, that's fine. But I don't want to miss time with our kids, and I don't also want to be present and not present.
Yeah, and that I think that's interesting, right? Like, and I was going to ask with your clients, particularly online ones. So, like, my office doesn't have doors, so I record when the kids are at school as best I can, right? And
Yeah.
but like, there are moments like you said, you've got clients, your kids are going to come on in. Like, how do you manage that expectation with them? Because again, some may not have kids, some may not understand that. Do you lay that out on the front end?
Well, my clients all know. Not, I don't shy away from being a dad. Like that
Yeah.
is that the happiest, most meaningful thing that I've ever done in my life. And my kids have to come first. I'm not putting them second. It's a little bit of a juggle, but my clients all know how much I love our kids, and they all enjoy them. I call them when they sit on my lap and say, hey, the assistant coach is here. They're going to help me out, and they kind of watch. They'll say hi, and when they get bored, they go run around and do something
Yeah.
else. And yeah, I think they enjoy it. I think they enjoy it as well.
I mean, again, I reflect like again, gym culture, kind of going back to like going to volleyball and that kind of stuff. Like, there are some parents that like again, their kids are gym rats, right? Like they come on in, they're immediate, and like, and it's just an instant like insertion into the whole ecosystem, and just the
Yeah,
people learn to understand it very quickly. Like, hey, this is my wife's boss. He uses the term rocks, right? He's got certain rocks that he won't move anything for, and one of his rocks is his kids, right? So like, from that perspective, hey, here's my rock, and if you need to know about it, I'm not going to shift off of it, but we can work around it, and we can have that be present. I think is
yeah,
pretty interesting.
yeah. And again, I've got a. I'm very fortunate because I do have something I'm very passionate about. I truly would do this if I could, if I didn't need to. If I didn't have to work, I would be doing the exact same thing that I am right now. I would probably coach a little bit more volleyball, but I love what I do. And part of it is because I can take my kids with and do those
Yeah.
things. I think so. It was the summer of 2021. Our daughter was probably about 10 or 11 months. And I just happened to be doing a volleyball camp 15 minutes from our house. So my wife brought Samantha down to the gym for the afternoon with me, and she spent the afternoon. And the girls loved it. The coaches loved it.
Mm-hmm.
We have a super cute picture of Sam in a volleyball cart with all the volleyballs. Just had
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
biggest smile on her face. And um, the other day we were in the backyard, and I taught both Sam and Jake how to pass a volleyball, and I'm not sure I've ever been happier. And when we were at the clinic or here in the gym the other day. I taught Sam how to spike, and my heart's pretty full doing all that. So yeah, it's just finding a way to include them in what I do is part of what I do.
Yeah, that's rad. Like reflect on trying to get Harper, our daughter, into a little bit of volleyball. She did I-9, and I ended up coaching 2 seasons, and she decided that like the second season, she's like got into it and then didn't like it. But like you're right, it's the moments that they get around it, and like the shared passion is really cool. And like there were times when we moved out here, like we're in the gym, and she's like, she wants to go in the gym and she wants to try to pepper and everything like that. And again, it's wonky, but it's the coolest thing in the world. Like you videotape it and you're like, I mean, I've got one hand, I'm tossing balls, and it's really cool to kind of have that shared moment with kids around your passion. Like you talk volleyball, you talk strength training, and again, you said you would do like the coaching thing if you didn't need the money or whatnot. Like I want to kind of rewind, and I'm not a full back rewind to like the beginning, but like how'd you get into the strength training with the volleyball background? And then we'll come back around to the background because volleyball.
Yeah. So I guess to rewind medium, when I was at Ball State, I became very curious as to why do some guys have 40-inch verticals, other guys have 32? Why
What
do
was
some of it
yours?
36?
Okay,
But
I just had
but
to.
what I was curious is like I spent a lot of time in the weight room, a lot. And I wanted to make sure that I was one of the hardest workers. And, part of that was just becoming the strongest human I possibly could. And I wanted to know why I couldn't jump as high as some of the guys that didn't put in the work that I did. And
Mm-hmm.
my freshman year, we had done a speed study with our human performance lab. I sought those guys out and I said, why is this the way it is? Like,
Mm.
explain to me. And so we learned about, force plates, rate of force production, ground reaction force, all that. And rather than changing my major, because I was already down the path of sports administration, I just let them design my workouts in the human performance lab, and then I would go do them on my own. I wasn't super involved with our strength and conditioning coaches doing my workouts. I went to the human performance lab. So I got a lot of like really good hands-on knowledge of how to program and do strength training. And after I left college, played a little bit professionally and was playing more and more on the beach. I continued to write my own workouts. When I got into coaching college, I worked a lot with our strength staff because I saw uh, probably too many workouts that I didn't feel were super appropriate for our kids, and we weren't getting
Mm.
the results that we would have liked. And then the other part of that was a lot of the issues that we see with college athletics. I saw, going back 18 years now, and they were just starting to creep up and become more and more of an issue. And I
Like
decided
what?
that, oh, I'm just simply going to call it entitled athletes. Not
Go
all of
for it.
them, but
Yeah.
that could be a whole other podcast, Steve.
We
But
can get a round. We
some
can
of
get
the
a round
issues,
table. We can get some good people to chime in on that, right?
yeah. One, but anyway, so
Yeah.
one of the problems that I saw as a volleyball coach was we had physically illiterate kids going to major programs, and you know, Georgetown being in the Big East, Florida State in the ACC. We were getting good volleyball players and we were getting good athletes, but we weren't getting great movers. We were asking them to change some things with their technique that they weren't capable of doing. They weren't strength wise where we needed them to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept thinking to myself, there's got to be something better to develop these kids physically before they get to the college game. There's going to be a large gap from an 18-year-old to a 22-year-old in terms of knowledge and speed and experience, which we can fire hose enough to get them,
Yeah.
to teach them how to identify certain things. But there's a lot of things that you can prepare a 17, 18, 19-year-old female for, or male for that matter,
Mm-hmm.
that they're just not physically prepared to do. And the game is much more physical. It's a lot faster at the college level. And I just didn't think that we were doing a good enough job blanket wise on preparing kids to come. There's some that were very well prepared. There were some that were not. And when I decided that I was going to leave college volleyball coaching, I knew what I was going to do, and that was become a strength coach. Because when I saw a problem, I knew that we can help solve that problem and leave a bigger footprint. If you're coaching in college, you're only coaching 15, 18 kids. You lose, 3-4 years, maybe bigger classes, but you have a very small footprint on the lives that you can impact and change. And from a high school level, you can change many, many, many more. And that's what I wanted to do. So that's what I set out to do.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a very different shift from sports administration, but and again, you've played at the highest levels possible. I mean, obviously coming from the through the Ball State pipeline and all of that stuff. What I find interesting is that you sought this out on your own, and I kind of want to stick with that because I think that's kind of also one of your foundations, right? Learning and trying to continue to push through things and constantly being like a student of everything. Like, where did that side of things come from?
Probably as a little kid.
Yeah.
I was as ADHD and curious and scatterbrained as any little boy could be. But uh, back in the days before Google and computers, we had these things called encyclopedias. And my
Yes.
grandparents got me a set. And when I was bored, growing up in Wisconsin, we don't always have good weather. So, I would just go up to my room and I would read encyclopedias. My mom was like, "You are driving me nuts. Go read a book, go read the encyclopedia or something because you're not watching TV." And I would go
Yeah.
up and I would read. And I just became very curious at how things went. But I also like to see the natural progression of things of, what's next. As an athlete, as a little kid, you want to achieve the highest level. You want to be a professional athlete in whatever sport. Because for me, that was what's next. Like, what's the next logical progression? And
Mm-hmm.
so, leaving, when I got into sport management and got my first job with the Brewers, was what's next. So what's the next level up? Okay. So from ticket account rep to account exec. From account
Mm-hmm.
exec, you're looking at a director position. After director, you're looking at VP. After VP, you're looking at another front office position. GM's on the baseball side. But when I shifted from Major League Baseball to minor league baseball and minor league hockey, in the front office, it was the same thing. It was like, you start off as an account exec. Well, what's next? And you're overseeing a department. Okay, what's next? After you oversee the department, you'll become a GM of a team, and that's basically like being a CEO of a business. So I've always kind of been aligned with, where do I go from here? Like, where is this going to lead me? And if it's not a path that I want to go down, I never really took it.
Mm-hmm.
So from being a college coach, you become, you go from assistant. Okay, what's next? Well, probably associate head coach. After associate would be a head coach. And
Right.
then what's from there? Well, it depends. Are you really happy with where you are? If you are, you just don't leave. You try to build a team and get as far as you can every season. There have been a lot of coaches who moved into administration, and from administration, you keep, like, there's always a logical path forward
Yeah.
that you want to focus on, because that's what's always driven me. So from getting into strength training, same thing. You start training athletes. Well, where you train them at either a big public gym, or you train them at a private location. And
Mm-hmm.
one of my high school volleyball players that I was coaching, her dad owned a gym. I said, "Hey, this is what I want to be doing." He said, "Yeah, go ahead, come train at my place." And then they ended up moving to open up a new facility out of the state. And he called me a few months later and says, "Hey, I need you to train an old client of mine. He got rid of his other trainer. Need someone to get him in shape." I'm like, "All right, cool, great." And then he called me a couple weeks later and said, "Hey, Lake Nona Golf and Country Club's going to hire a trainer. Yours is the only resume they have. The job's yours if you want it." And at that time, I was still kicking around getting back into college volleyball. And I said, "Well, if I'm going to do that and not this, I am going to go in like full throttle. Like, we are not looking at any more college jobs. I'm not dipping toes, and this is what we're doing. And that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And, being at a country club, you're like, all right, well, I better figure this golf thing out.
Hmm.
And figured the golf thing out and started working with a lot of golfers. I was fortunate that we had some kids of parents that were members that were volleyball players, and I worked with them. And a lot of the next logical progression things have kind of led me to where I am.
It's interesting that you talk about kind of the ladder, right? Because again, I think in this day and age too, people are so focused on climbing the ladder, the corporate ladder, but I don't necessarily think that it's done through the lens at which you're speaking. Because again, what I sat and heard was like, okay, hey, I've got to do this to get to this. And it's like the progression, whereas I think people want to climb the ladder just for the sake of climbing the ladder, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that there are a lot of, so there are two things. One, we've been fed too much of the if then. If you do this, then you do that. Or if you do this, then you get that. It's like, no, you don't. You don't get any of it. You get opportunities for it. But, had I not been prepared for the opportunity that got put at my feet, I still had to do something with it. But I had to be in a position to recognize the opportunity and then attack it. If I had just kind of been wishy-washy about coaching college volleyball and getting back into that, I wouldn't have seen the opportunity. I had no idea where it would lead me, but it led me down to some really, really cool paths and really cool opportunities. But I had to be ready to see that was an opportunity. I think a lot of people, to your point, I think people want to start too high up on the ladder. You have to start low. And we've been fed this idea that, you go to undergrad, you finish, you get a degree, and then you get a good job, and then you do your grad degree, and then you get a better paying job. It's like, no, you get opportunities for these things. It's harder now. I mean, you've got, the horror stories of people, finishing an MBA and having to compete against 4,000 people for a job. And we I don't know if it's still the case now, but I was rejected for jobs with the old, you're too qualified, you're overqualified. Like, that's nonsense. Like, I want an opportunity. That's
Yeah.
all I want. Just give me the opportunity, and then let's figure out, am I good at this or am I not? Am I going to enjoy this or am I not? Do you even want me here or do you not? And I think that's a really important thing to start off low, because that's part of how we grow, and that's part of how we get better. Is I've had some amazing, amazing managers and leaders, and I've been around some absolute dumpster fire of managers. But I learned more from them than I did from great ones. The great ones just sort of like, you're just gravitated towards, and the other ones push you away. But you're always constantly looking at things, going, I wouldn't do it that way. But everyone thinks they have a better way than their manager right away. It's like, no, like, you need to go fail at a whole bunch of stuff first. You just don't realize you fail at it. Most failures are very small and they're unrecognizable. And then you turn around, you're like, oh, hmm. And then you get to decide, like, was this a good idea implemented at the wrong time? Was it a good idea with poor implementation? Was it, was it the right time with not the right idea? Like, there are lots of ways to analyze why something didn't work, why a job didn't work out. Too many times we're fighting like it's somebody else's fault. Hey, it didn't happen because of X. Like, well, maybe you weren't the right. Maybe it wasn't the right thing for you. Maybe you weren't the right one for the job, and that's okay. I think it's awesome when people leave things that they're not good at or called to do. There's probably a good argument that I wasn't as great an assistant coach as I needed to be, and that's why I'm not college coaching. I'm totally willing to wear that.
Yeah.
And, all it does is make me say, okay, so how can I be better at those things? And when we have a little bit of self-awareness and self-reflection, and you're like, how can I be better? Then, shoot, you can do whatever you want with that.
See, and that's interesting, right? Like, said it in the past, like it's these mirror moments, right? It's the opportunities for us to kind of reflect. But, and again, I'm guilty of it to where I have a hard time with some of those mirror moments, but it sounds like in your experiences, like it's something that you've embraced along the way, right? Like and you actually seek that out. How did you develop that part? Because that to me is fascinating, because I don't know if people,
Pure
yeah.
survival. My wife and I joke around that I am way more risk averse than she is, and then I stop and I turn around and I look at my path. And I'm like, you might feel like you're risk averse, but I dove headfirst into shallow water, hoping it was. Sorry, I dove headfirst into deep water, thinking and hoping it was shallow, or at least manageable. And I had to figure out how to swim because I was always willing to give something a shot, which is the opposite of risk averse as you can possibly get. I had a job going way back. Uh, it's a super funny story how he got there, but I worked at UCLA basketball in the summer of 2000.
Hmm.
Yeah, summer of 2000. I think I had just finished grad school and had met the basketball coach, just Steve Lavin, just totally
Mhm.
met him randomly, and got a call a few months later after meeting him that they had a job available. I was still trying to get into Major League Baseball. He happened to know Kevin Malone, the GM of the Dodgers, said, "Hey, come out to LA. I'll get you in touch with a bunch of people in the field. But we have a job for you in the meantime at UCLA. It's yours if you want it." I'm like,
Doing what?
"Let's go." I was the office manager for UCLA
Oh, right on.
basketball, so
No
I got to
way.
hang out with every day. It was Dan, because it was the summer. It's Dan Gadzuric. Baron Davis just finished his rookie year with the Hornets. Master P used to come into the office all the time. Um, we would go up to men's gym and watch all the NBA guys play. TJ Cummings and Josiah Johnson, both of whom are sons of former Milwaukee Bucks that I idolized as a kid. They were
Yeah.
playing there, so I got to see those guys. I mean, it was amazing. And I got an email from one of my college teammates playing over in Germany, that they needed a setter. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to be out of volleyball yet. And so I went into Lav's office. I'm like, hey, man, I got this opportunity. I got to go chase it. I'm not done playing yet. And he's like, I just got you a full-time position here. So right then and there, I had to decide, am I staying? Am I going?
Yeah.
And when I say life was pretty cushy, life was pretty darn good. I was living in Marina Del Rey, going to work in Westwood. I mean, I was playing beach volleyball every week. I mean, I was living the life.
Yeah.
And here I did, just up and leave, go to Europe without a guaranteed contract, try out, play with a bunch of guys that I thought I hated because I played against them in college. Got to the German team, was there for a few weeks. Everything didn't work out. It was time to come home. And
Mm.
I would have regretted not going, 1,000%. And I don't know how life would have turned out any different. I know I wouldn't be here had I stayed, but I'm glad it led me down the path it did. And so there are all sorts of those things. Like there's a ton of opportunities that I've jumped at, and I don't know whether they were well thought out or not, but they just lead you down a path, and you figure out what you're going to do once you're there. It's kind of like learning how to fly the airplane while you're in the airplane,
Yeah.
building the airplane, and it's in the air.
That's fascinating to me. And again, like like steps is the name of the podcast, right? And I'm bringing it back. And we were talking beforehand. It's a little bit of a shift and a refocus on the vision, but it's literally about the journey, right? It's the steps that have kind of led us to this. And it's always interesting to kind of reflect on where we've come from and those moments that maybe didn't work out. You know, you sit and you talk about this, like you got the cushy life and you go chase, but yet it's all of this has led you to where it is right now. Now, here's something I'm very curious about, because obviously family changes things and all that. And we go back to your purpose, right? You said the purpose. How uh, how do you suggest, or in your experience, how have you balanced that purpose of family with chasing those things and going all in? Because again, it's different when you have mouths to feed, significant others, as opposed to being a bachelor living in LA and, hey, I'm going to go chase this dream in Germany. You know what I mean?
I think it's a little bit more calculated, but when you have a long-term vision, it becomes easier. Um, Again, so just quick background: I was strength coach in Florida for a long time. I was at Lake Nona Golf and Country Club for I think about 10 years, and then my wife and I had been talking. We were married in 2016. We decided that we wanted kids, and we were waiting for her to. She works at Lululemon, so we were waiting for her to get a job promotion. And we didn't see at that time, just because things are very like bunched up. They're either like the next job up is either like nobody's leaving or everybody leaves at once. And we were just in that point of time where nobody was leaving. And we got an opportunity to go down to South Florida for a promotion, but that would have entailed me completely up and leaving what was a really, really awesome environment. Lake Nona was one of the greatest experiences in my life for a lot of reasons. I still have some clients that are there. I still have a lot of friends that are there, and it gave me some incredible opportunities. But I also knew life-wise and family-wise, for us to be happy and for us to do what we needed to do, which was the next logical step for our family, we needed to leave. And that was just my wife and I at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So she came home one day, and I had talked to a couple of friends who were down in South Florida about, job opportunities and can I replicate what I'm doing down there? She came home from work, and I said, let's do it. Let's move. And she said, what? I said, let's move. Let's go to South Florida. I talked to so-and-so and so-and-so. I think it's going to be better off for us in the long run. Let's do it. Let's go now. And she had like 3 days. She got me the offer. She had 3 days to decide. We had just moved into a house rental that we had to pay a penalty to leave and up and move down. And we did it. And it led us to some incredible things. We had our daughter down there. And, a few months after, I think it was about 12 to 18 months after we moved down there, she got her first store manager job. She's been a store manager ever since. And it took me about 5 years to build back up my training business to where it was volume wise at Lake Nona. And, right when I was going into our busiest fall, we had talked, about getting our kids back up to Wisconsin a little bit more often. And I remember my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's about 2 years ago. And I wanted to come up and make sure, just kind of see where he was, see how he was doing. And so we came up for a family weekend. And one of the nights, my sister and brother-in-law were watching our kids. And we went out to dinner with one of my best friends who I'd known since I was 5. We went out to dinner with him and his wife. We were going to the Bucks game. We went to my favorite restaurant, and randomly we ran into a couple other friends that I hadn't seen in years, and they were there. And Laura just kind of gave me a look like, we need to be home. And I remember sitting at the Bucks game, and I just turned to my wife at halftime and I said, let's do it. Let's move home. It's time. She goes, are you serious? I said, let's do it. And I'd been talking to some friends of mine that I met through the golf world a few years earlier about possibly doing that. And he happened to be at the game that night as well. And so I said, hey, let's meet up at halftime. So we go out, and I said, let's do it. Let's put this thing together. We've been talking about it for a while. Let's do it. We're committing. We're going to be up here by next September 1st. And as soon as we decided, like, this is what was happening and we're going to put it out to the universe, we just had to wait to see what was going to happen with Laura's job, and could we find one for her up here. Within like 2 months, Steve, a job opening pops up for a brand new store opening up here. And it didn't end up getting greenlit, but the regional manager up here knew who my wife was.
Yeah.
After that we were interested and committed to coming up. And 2 months after that, a store got greenlit, and we were just waiting for the word go. And it finally, like, they finally got all the T's the T's dotted and I's crossed,
Yeah.
and we're packing up to move the end of June. I think we found out officially like the beginning of June. We were packed up by the end of the month. We had movers run into the house, pack everything up. We were on the road July 15th or 16th, hauling up here.
Oh,
And then we found
holy
a
cow.
house. And then we found a house 6 weeks later. I mean, there are just so many things that fell into place. But like I was saying earlier, you've you have to prepare yourself for opportunities, and you have to see when they come along. And when you fully commit to it, just so many incredible things happen. I don't know whether it's good fortune. I don't know, whether it's a lot of things, but to have all those things happen just says like it's meant to be. You just needed to look for this.
Mm-hmm.
You just needed to be ready to look for the signs, and it's super cool. I mean, we're really happy up here, and our kids get to see my parents and their cousins and my brothers and sisters. Like they get to see them all the time, and they're so happy. And more than a few times, people that I'm close with have looked at me and said, "I think this is the happiest we've ever seen you." And it's kind of cool, but holy shit, I'll tell you what. When you decide that you're going to leave your business behind, that you completely built up again, and decide, I'm going to go do this all over again. You knew how hard it was. It took you 5 years to get it back to where you were, and you're going to leave it all behind. And you're going to go start over, and you're going to do this with your family depending on you. Unfortunately, my wife has a good job, but holy shit, that's terrifying. That
Yeah.
is some of the scariest high wire shit with no net.
Yeah.
But the plan that we put in place and the goals that we have make sense from that standpoint of I can stay in Florida and this is what life is going to be like, or we
Mm-hmm.
move and we're going to take a little bit of a dip, but then the snap back is going to be even better. And like, holy shit. Like I said, that's some scary stuff, but it's a calculated risk, and with a plan, you can build some pretty cool things.
Man, there's a whole lot there, and I want to recognize like you sharing that because like like the journey is really awesome what you've been through, and there's a lot of parallels, and I'll pull some of them up. So like you mentioned Lululemon. Lululemon's kind of a red thread for you and I, and I didn't realize it, but again, my wife, whenever we were moving around, when I was coaching, she was involved in the Lululemon ecosystem. She was a store manager in Atlanta. Did kind of went that whole path, and again, it was interesting as we were making the moves in the journey, right? Like, okay, hey, this is gonna if we're gonna move, right? If I'm gonna take this coaching job, we need this to happen. And boom, here it happens, right? And so like, kudos to Lululemon, fantastic company, was really great when Corey worked for him. But like, there's those kind of things, and I recorded a podcast episode yesterday with a friend, and we were talking about like the energy, and you were saying like it's when the things align. It's like that movie. What is it? Click. Yeah, I think Click with Adam Sandler, where like he uses the remote and all the green lights just go right, and it's just like it feels like it's like divine intervention or energy, but like all of that happens only if we're like we say yes to it, right, and then we pay attention to it. And if you're stuck at a red light, you've got to make the decision to turn, or do you sit and do you stay at that red light, not knowing when it's going to change? And I think that this conversation is kind of a mirror moment for me because we 2.5 years ago, we moved down here to just outside of Phoenix to be near my in-laws, right? So similar situation. It was something I brought up. We were living in Portland. We had just come down here. It was COVID. And I go, this may be crazy, but what if we do this? What if we decide to relocate? And what if we decide to be near mom and dad, Corey's parents, so the kids can be around them more and we can create this environment, right? Sun 24/7. And it was scary. We're like, okay, we need to wait and we need to see. So one of us needs to get a full-time job for us to be able to make the transition. Corey got a job and opportunity in end of February, early March. So it's like, okay, hey, we got to put the house for sale. We got to get down there by June, for our daughter to start kindergarten, all this stuff. I tell my boss at Adidas, I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing. They're like, yeah, I can't do anything. You're going to have to quit. Like, you can't work remote. Corner like, okay, I guess I'm quitting. Right. And so that's the cool part of the story. Now, here's my reflective moment is for the past 2.5 years, I've been in a role and function that I didn't necessarily expect to be. I've been applying for jobs. I've been doing all this, like I applied for 80 jobs in January, and we go back to the whole overqual, like with zero luck or response. Right. But as I'm sitting and thinking about it, right, like nothing has really been fully in alignment with who I am and what I want to be up to. So perhaps that's the reason those haven't opened. Now I need to figure out where I go from that. Perhaps these conversations spark a little bit more of that and be able to help turn those lights to green a little bit.
Yeah, there's actually a really funny. I don't know if you're a 30 Rock fan.
I haven't seen it.
But later on in the series, Alec Baldwin's character Jack Donaghy leaves his position as CEO and takes another job and comes back, and they've already got another CEO. So he starts off in the mailroom, and he runs into Tina Fey's character, Liz Lemon, and she goes, "Jack, you're in the mailroom?" And he goes, "I've already been promoted twice today." He goes, "I feel like in 6 months I'll be up to vice president." But like, yes, you're CEO and you're way too overqualified to be in the mailroom. But just get a job. Have a plan. And I kind of laugh at that, but then I also realize like how important that seemingly like innocuous message is for most people of like, if you really want to be somewhere, just do whatever it takes to, go empty out trash. Like, and this is the funny thing too. People think like, oh, I don't want to empty out the trash. I don't want to, I don't want to do all these things. I just want, the high pay and the glory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, trust me, if you're a business owner, you empty the trash.
Every day.
There is nothing above you when you're a business owner, especially a small business owner. You clean the toilets, no matter what's in those toilets. You take out the garbage. You do all the dirty work that you think that other people are paid to do. No, as a business owner, you are all of those things. You are all the hats. But you also get to enjoy like all the benefits of it. And, I think that's the cool thing about, taking those types of risks is I think a lot of people say like, what's the, what happens if it doesn't work out? And I've had a really hard time getting off that message because I've had to reframe it of like, what happens if it does? Like, not only what happens if it works out the way you planned, what if it's better? Like,
Yeah.
what if it's 3x, 4x, 5x better than what you had planned? Like, think of where you're going to be, as opposed to like, let's just stay put. I love the intersection analogy of you can turn or go straight, but shit, you have to do one of those. You cannot stand still because that's where like you're not moving forward at all. If you take a wrong turn, you can at least turn around and go the opposite direction, but you're not going to know if it's the wrong turn until you turn.
Yeah,
Just
you got to push the pedal.
Right, and you're gonna figure out like, oh man, that is really the wrong way, or it is just a wrong way. You'll get there eventually. And I think that's an important it's an important thing, is just being able to make that decision and you're not going to know if it's a good decision or a bad decision until you actually make it and do it. And I think too many people, and again, myself included, wait for the right opportunity, and it's never going to be not the right opportunity, the right time. You're always waiting for the right time. Stop waiting. Just go do it. There's never going to be a good time. You have to go do it. There's never a good time to uproot your business and move your family across the country. But the only right time to do it is right now. And that's...
Well, and that's, again, like a parent to parent, like when people ask you about parenting, right? Like, again, you're never ready. You're never ready for it, right? Like, and again, it's the same thing, right? And I think that it's an easier notion to sit and understand when you're in the seat, right? Like, oh yeah, we weren't ready, but again, we chose that, right? Like, and I think that I want to talk small business because you were talking about that. And again, obviously it's a different world, right? Like it's what you do, like you're cleaning the toilets, you're doing this, but like, how did you decide that was for you? And how do you continue to like enjoy all of it?
I think there's just a lot of trust.
Hmm.
As we get older, I mean, I'll call it our bullshit meter. As we get older, your bullshit meter gets a little bit finely tuned, or more finely tuned, and you can kind of tell, like, is this in line with my values? Is this the right opportunity, or is it not? The longer I've been working, the more I realize I don't want to do it alone, but I don't want to work for somebody else either.
Ooh.
Don't want to be answerable to anybody other than myself, maybe accountable, but I'd rather have partners in what I do than somebody telling me. And so when those types of things come around, um, I'm looking at, does this fit with my values? Um, does it get me to my overall goal? What is my overall goal? Sometimes I have to sit and really think, like, okay, is this does this align with what I want and what I want to do, or does it
Mm-hmm.
not? And there's some really cool opportunities that you have to turn down because they don't align at the time. I don't think you necessarily need to close the door on them, but I think it's having a little bit of reflection and deciding, is this, does this get me to where I want to be, becomes a little bit more important, which goes back to what we were talking about earlier with experience. Without that experience, you can go, uh, you know, headlong into something that
Mm-hmm.
may not be ideal. But then again, that's what experience is. Experience is just doing a whole bunch of things that you fail at or weren't the right things until you find what it is. I think it's the truth in dating. It's the truth in business. It's the truth in life. Is you find things that don't work, and those help guide you to the things that do. And maybe there are parts of the things that don't work that will, and you can implement those. Um, but
Yeah.
this opportunity, like, it just felt right from the beginning. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I said, I've got amazing business partners who are really focused on our growth, who've been super supportive, and us and me growing this part of our business. It's a vision that we've all had, and again, when you share the same vision and you can implement those things, life becomes really, really cool.
One thing that you mentioned that I am holding on to right now is like the doing the thing for yourself, but doing it with people. And I think that that's something that it's really fascinating as part of my journey over the past couple of years. I was like, I'm going to do life coaching. I'm going to help athletes. I'm going to do this. And I realized that I I need people, right? I need people in alignment to have this shared vision. And it may, as I say it, it sounds like an excuse, but I'm like, I realized that I wasn't a great solo entrepreneur to figure that out. That I need proximity and all that stuff. And I think that's been one of the biggest challenges. As you've kind of navigated these things, how have you found the right people to do things with, that not only business but life?
Oh man, it's complicated, but it's really simple. Have a really good sense of self-awareness, what your gaps are, what your blind spots are, and find people who fill those.
Mm.
Like, I I am very, very aware of uh, uh, my weaknesses and where my opportunities are to improve as a human. And I it took me, and this isn't said flippantly, but it took me a while to find that right partner in my wife who filled a lot of the things that I knew I needed as a person, to be a better husband, to be a better partner, to be a better father. I needed someone to help fill those gaps. It wasn't about the perfect relationship; it was finding the right person,
Mm-hmm.
um, who is perfect for me. And I'm super grateful that I have her, because we're so aligned on so many things, and she does so many things well that I am just not good at.
Like what?
And Um, I'm a little scatterbrained, as I've said,
Yeah,
I think a couple of times. Organization is,
I know that
there's
well.
certain things that I'm really well organized at. There's certain things that I am not. My creativity is not where I would like it. Uh, probably have, if I created, if I carved out a cinder block, that would be a masterpiece for me. Um, but Laura's really good at that. Some like graphic design, marketing, just a lot of the things that for a business, you need some back end work. She just
Hmm.
does such a good job at those things, and I can spit out ideas, and she fills in the gaps for those ideas.
Mm.
Being here at Eritas, we have a phenomenal staff, and the opportunity that our owner Nate and I saw was when I asked him, is there a strength? Do you have a strength program at the clinic? He goes, no, we want one, but we just haven't found the right person. I said, what if that was me? He's like, that'd be great. Um, we have an amazing staff here, from our admin to our techs to just an insanely talented group of PTs who make my job really easy as the strength coach, because we wanted to take people from PT, because you can't separate physical therapy from strength. You just can't. They're the same
Right.
thing. Where you are in the continuum of care will vary, but we want to blend people as they progress through their rehab into strength, and we have the opportunity to do that because the we have the vision of that's what we want. That we want people to live strong, healthy lives, and we can take people who are finishing up physical therapy and say, hey, we love you, but we don't want you coming back into PT because that means you're in pain. So let's get you over into our strength program. And being able to build that vision and see where that are, you have to have a team that believes in that vision as well. And that's one of the reasons why we were drawn here. That's why it was a perfect opportunity for us to move back home. Is we have that team around us at Eritas, and I have that person at home with my wife, and having people around you to help fill in the things that you're not good at, I think is a huge key to success. And it's work on both ends,
Yeah.
as it should be. There's an evolution on both ends, as there should be, but man, it's awesome when you put the time in to find the things that click. And like I said, it's all about self-awareness. What do you need as a human to make you better? And it's not always somebody else makes you better. It's just, if you're a jigsaw puzzle, you need the frame, you need the inside pieces, they all got to fit together, but you got to do the work to put it together.
Yeah, I love that last analogy, the jigsaw puzzle piece, because again, it also means that we're all kind of works in progress, right? We continue to talk about that, right? I don't think we're ever fully finished until we're finished. And what I loved about you talking about your wife and even the business partners is it's, I don't want to say opposites attract, but like it's complementary in nature. And my wife is very
Mm-hmm.
similar. She's very good whenever it comes to organization. That like I'm looking at my right behind here, my like my whiteboards that she's like, hey, you need these so that way we can work on, you can organize and do that. And I'm like, great. Like, because I don't think like that, right? I'm a relationships person. I'm a connections person. I try to do all of these things to where I feel these things, but like organization, not my thing. So like, it's kind of like it's the opposite person that fills in the gaps to where, because again, if you've got the same person and if you are the same exact person, well, then the weaknesses or areas of improvement are going to be that much larger, whether it be in relationship or in business.
Yeah. And I think um, I think those are some of the big life lessons that I learned was, you know, understanding where I can be better.
Mm.
And then just I'm just not going to be great at certain things, and I'm totally cool with that. On the golf side with TPI on base U, Greg Rose has said, you have as an athlete, you have your superpower, let's not work too hard on the things that aren't your superpower because they'll take away from it. So, I still want to work on those things so that they're not a detractor,
Right.
but I know what my superpowers can be, and I'm really going to hammer those. And I'll find people. Like, again, the part of being a business owner, hire the people that you're to do the things that you're not good at. And there are a lot of areas in my life in which I've really done that, or at least in my business life, to make sure there's someone around for those things. And um, at home, I just try to use my superpowers to my advantage, and do the other things as best I can, and understand when I need help. I'll just ask my wife for it.
And I think that we need to have those moments to where, not of, I don't want to use the word vulnerability, but like the moments of like, hey, where we raise our hand, it's like, look, I need help. And I think
Yeah.
it's getting easier this day and age, but it's also getting harder because of everything with social media and how everybody seems to have all their stuff together. And it's just like, it's different. I want to go, you said something.
Anyone who says they have their shit together,
Oh
they do
gosh.
not. It's a lie. It is
Oh,
a complete lie.
that's a whole nother
This
episode.
is, I mean, this has been, so my wife had her first knee replacement 3 weeks ago. She's having another one done in early September. And
Hmm.
so there's, the last couple of weeks have been hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But the great thing is we've because of our relationship, and I think this is important for people to both know and to seek out. The best relationships, whether it's in business or in life, is when you're down, your partner is up. They don't necessarily have to make things better, but there's when one down, one up, and
Hmm.
sometimes that'll toggle. Sometimes you're both down here, and we've been there a little bit more frequently than we have in our 10 or so years together. But we also, like, a few seconds later, we were just having this conversation before you and I hopped on, of like, things are just really tough in a couple of facets right now. And she said, I'll open it because I want to read this because I think it's
Yeah, go.
pretty important. Um, they say things are hardest and darkest when you're on the verge of something great. In reality and in the hero's journey arch, I think it's real. And to have someone who sends that when you're both, just you're not in an optimal spot.
You're challenged. Yeah.
um yeah, and to have someone that sends that to you, and you recognize, like, yeah, and it makes life really, really easy, even though it's hard. You just know in the moment that it's challenging, and it's when you have that support, um it makes the difference in everything.
It's I don't want to say it's further confirmation, but again, it kind of is, right? That again, you're in the right situation, you're choosing the right hard, like, and that's like, there's the old adage, right? Like, marriage is hard, divorce is hard, choose your hard, right? Like, being healthy is hard, being sick is hard for different reasons. You get to choose, and I love that. I actually think that if we are our partners, our wives would get along really well, because again, this is like, these are conversations that Corey and I have. We just passed 17 years of being married, right? And again, it's not sunshine and rainbows. And again, I love the analogy where you said where one's high and one's low, and like, it's the pendulum, like it's the counterbalance, right? And then sometimes it does happen where we are both low. And I think that obviously we try to optimize, and we want life to be in harmony. We want to be kind of at that good middle point, right? But again, it's not how it always works. And that's the also kind of confirmation that that's the right person for us, because again, it's that counterbalance.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, shoot, that's business too. That's sports.
Yeah.
um it, it, nobody's path to success is linear. There's always up, there's always down. You just try to make the bounce backs higher, so
Hmm.
you're not losing ground. It's not a cha-cha where it's, one step forward, two steps back.
Mm.
um but I think it's important that you kind of have that mentality of, today's a down day. I recognize it, I own it, I feel it, and that's okay. tomorrow is going to be better. We have a new opportunity tomorrow. And then, like I said, you look back and it's like, holy shit, I've come so far. And it felt like I was so far behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the cool thing about adversity and self-awareness and paths to success is, we hear the joke of the overnight success that took 10 years. It's just everybody recognized, like all of a sudden, hey, where do they come from? We're like, I've been here. It's
Yeah.
just, for whatever reason, nobody knew, nobody knew about it. But, here you were toiling away in the shadows. And sometimes that's good. I don't like, I don't think you need to be on the radar all the time. There's enough pressure that comes with that. Again, another conversation I've been having with some golf and sports strength coaches is we feel obligated to come up with like new content every day on social media and the newest exercise. Like shit, I don't want an infinite library category. I don't want the
No.
newest sexiest thing. Like squat, deadlift, push, pull, carry, locomote, something. But like follow the big six movements and then do one body part, two body parts. Make sure you're hitting frontal plane, sagittal plane, transverse plane. Uh, and that's all you need. And yet we beat ourselves up over not coming up with more stuff every day when, um, we don't really need to, but we feel
Yeah.
like we have to. And there's that push pull and, yeah.
I think, well, and again, I think that it's a byproduct of the environment that we find ourselves in. But even like going back to volleyball coaching, right? Like you go to the AVCA convention, right? And you're like, I remember distinctly when I was coaching, like Fran Floor is out there. She's training middles, and she's got this elastic that she's got tied to the pins and keeping the middles in the triangle. And I'm like, I bring it, like it's a great idea. Let's bring it back. But you don't always need to reinvent things. You need to understand. And here's where I'm going to tie it back around. It goes back to what you were saying earlier on. You need to know what your core values are or your core competencies are, where you want to spend the time and where you get to impact the world and the circles of people around you, and lean into that. Now, can you expand a little bit and try stuff on and see if it aligns with you? Yes, but I don't think that you need to do everything to be everything to everybody. And I think that that's the challenge that so many people, even myself included, find ourselves in. Is like, you want to be everything to everybody except for the people that you need to be what you're supposed to be too. And I think that it's a tough thing, but also when you boil it down, right? The word you used earlier was self-awareness. And I think that that's what so much of this comes down to.
Yeah. And again, I think that actually brings up another kind of good point that you made. When it comes to self-awareness, one thing that I've noticed is people think that gives them a green light to just kind of be an a-hole.
Mm.
It's like, this is who I am. Like, okay,
Yeah.
like fine. Like I'm totally like you be who you need to be. But if you're using that as an excuse to not make yourself better, like you can take it or leave it. Like, okay, fine, I'm going to leave it. Because if there's no interest in at least improving those things, then who are you trying to, or what message are you trying to get across? And I think too many people have said that, the uniquely you and that. I think that we can take that and say yes. However,
Yes. And
um,
yep.
that let's still continue to work on the things that we're not good at. Like I own who I am. I own what I am, but that doesn't mean that's where I'm going to stay. And that goes back to the car stalling out of the intersection, not turning right and left or going straight. Is being able to say, this is who I am, and I'm going to continue to work on getting better. Because I think a little bit of it is a crutch and talking yourself into like staying less optimal. That we can be better, we can do things better, and we have to continue to strive there. It's just here's where I am at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tie it back to what you were saying, right? Like having lousy days. I remember back in coaching, right? Like you can have lousy days, but like you need to give your best, right? So if your best today is a 6 and you're giving 100%, like it's okay. Understand that and understand that you're doing your best. And I think that that's where it kind of all ties together, right? Like not every day is going to be that, but like being able to understand that and give your best as opposed to you using your words, like use it as a crutch. Like you need to take
Yeah.
action around it.
Yeah, and we can't be at our best every single day. We can
No.
try, but there's been a ton of times where my clients have come in and we get done with a training session and they're like, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I just, I didn't have a good night of sleep, or I've been under a ton of stress. I just didn't have it today." I'm like, "Well, A, I couldn't tell, and B, if you only had 60%, you gave me 90% of that, and that's all I need.
Right.
Like
That's a
that's fine.
win.
Like we came
Yep.
in and yeah, for sure, we won today. We absolutely won." Um, and I think that's where uh, I like being a coach, whether it's a strength coach or a volleyball coach. I understand as a player that we're not going to have it every day. I backed way off. I was pretty intense as a coach when I was younger, and I've mellowed out a lot. In fact, if you ask some of my high school kids, they're like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
you were you mellowed out a ton," and it's because I lost sight of some things that I expected greatness out of every practice instead of we're going to be up, we're going to be down. And when we were down, it's like, hey, you know what? Instead of working harder, let's just do this. Give me all
Yeah.
you got for 30 minutes and we're out of here. That's it. We're done. And practices always ticked up after that, every single one of them.
Hmm.
And that's where communicating with our athletes became more and more important. Like, hey, guys, what's going on? Like,
Mm.
why are we so flat today? Okay, cool. I didn't know that. Sweet. Let's finish this drill up and we're going.
Yeah.
And, um, I think that's one of the things that I've liked about the day to day side of coaching is those ups and downs. Um,
Hmm.
Both communicating with your athletes, whether it's, coaching a sport or coaching in a strength training environment, is being able to have those conversations and that relationship with your athletes.
Yeah. And I want to applaud you for what you said because, again, it takes a lot of conviction to be able to ask kids or ask individuals those types. Hey, where are we falling short? What's going? Fill me in on what's going on because, again, I think that a lot of times in coaching, we tend to bypass the actual human element, right? Understanding that they're human beings, that they're going through stuff, that their best is only a 6 today. But like truly seeing those people for who they are, not what their output is, what they're lifting, this and this and this. Because again, it's in most cases, right, as a coach, it's not about us. It shouldn't be about us. It's about the other person. So the more that we can connect, we can make that person feel seen, heard, and valued, and you can have a relationship and a rapport with them. And guess what? They're going to run through a wall for you. They're going to do all these things. And then you also get more insight to where they're at.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where I became a better coach and a better leader is having a more open relationship with our players and having better communication and stepping back and saying, all right, like let's have a conversation about this as opposed to like a very one
Yeah.
sided
I'm telling you
uh
what to do. Yeah.
yeah yeah that rarely goes well. That rarely
Yeah.
goes well. Um, but if we want to put it back, it's I think it was John Wooden that said players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Mm-hmm.
Is my team started doing better when I asked less of them than when I asked more. And it's not that we lowered our standards. It's understanding more that the what you're asking of high school players is completely different than what you're asking of a college player.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the demands on a high school player are much greater than at the college level, and likewise the things that are going on. You may not have, like in high school, you'll have kids who don't go on to play college, and
Mm-hmm.
expecting them to play like college athletes or to train like college athletes isn't fair to them. They just want to go out and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we balance like being competitive and having fun and enjoying the journey when you do have kids that are going on to play in college that are hyper focused on winning, and balancing those things together is difficult. But when you have the open conversations and you have that type of relationship, there's a lot of cool things that happen. It's one of the reasons why I haven't coached high school since I left Olympia in fall of 2017, as I spent 9 years trying to get that team.
Mm.
Like, it took a long time to build the team that we ended up having, and I wasn't sure that I was fully committed to putting in that time and energy, because we had such a special group that last year, that I wasn't sure I really wanted to go through and rebuild that. It took a lot of energy, and I haven't
Yeah.
really. And the other side is I've been busy building two businesses after that,
Right.
um, but there's an enormous amount of joy in seeing that work come together, and then step back. You really want a few years to enjoy it. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure if I went back into coaching a team, I could enjoy that group as much as I did, and as much as I have.
No, it makes total sense. And again, as we go down our path in our journey, right? Like the priorities change, our shift on things that are reflective moments. Like again, we get, and that's the cool thing is it. I'll go back to the intersection, right? We get to choose. We get to choose if we're going to go straight, we're going to turn left, we're going to turn right, and it may not be where we want to go right now, but maybe it takes us where we're supposed to go. All those things, and like I think that's the neat thing is you get the opportunity to. Maybe you want to do that whenever your kids get to a more formative age or it's something, or maybe you don't, right? Like, and it's this is where you're supposed to be. But like I love hearing that you have that reflection on it and that you're very intentional with it, because most people like we've talked, get wrapped up in the chase of it all.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, to use that, like, getting wrapped up in the chase, you very, very rarely enjoy the path and
Yep.
the journey. And that's
Yep.
something that I've tried to focus more on, is uh, being an older dad to start. I'm going to be 50 in about a month and a half. Fortunately, I don't look my age. I don't feel my age.
I was gonna say you don't look 50.
People
You're
don't.
good.
People have a hard time sometimes believing that I've got an almost 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. But it's made me hyper aware of my time at home and enjoying the moments. But that also comes outside of the house. Like, try to enjoy moments a lot more, because I want every second with my kids to feel like an hour.
Mm.
Sometimes when they're screaming, it does feel like an hour. But I try to be a little bit more aware, and embracing of the journey, both hard and easy. You can't. I don't think you can be as effective of a parent if you're only going to enjoy when the kids are happy and bouncing around and having a good time, as when they're screaming and things are going south and everyone's melting down at the same time. Uh, that's got to be part of the enjoyment. At 2 o'clock in the morning, when your
Mm-hmm.
kid wakes up, they've thrown up, you're changing them, you're giving them a bath, you're tired, you got woken up by somebody throwing up and crying. If you're not going to enjoy that, how much are you really going to appreciate the fun times, like last night when both kids are jumping on me like a trampoline, and you're goofing around and
Yeah.
truly enjoying having a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and everything that they are. There is, like, it's not it's not a trade-off. You don't trade the bad times for the good.
Mm-mm.
You've got to enjoy all of it. And I don't think we have that viewpoint when you're younger. I
Mm-mm.
think you see the good points of it, and you see the challenging points of it, but you don't truly appreciate it because there's so many other things going on. I got nothing else going on. I don't want anything else to go on. I want to go out in the garden and pick vegetables with our kids and have them eat cherries or tomatoes right off the vine, and teach them all the things that we firmly believe in, and have a good time. And I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night with somebody crying, and it's all just awesome. It's all super fun.
It is, and to your point, it's a mindset shift. And sometimes, even when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel awesome. But to be able to talk about it, kind of like you and I are doing right now, it allows me to appreciate it even more, right? Because again, when you're going through it, when you get woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning because Harper had a bad dream, and I go lay and fall asleep with it, like that's not my favorite thing in the world in the moment, right? Like, and it's hard, but like it's not until you have conversations like this that it allows things to kind of come back into perspective. And then I think for me the challenge is, then how do I continue this thought around it and continue to embrace. It goes back to our really the kind of the red thread of our conversation, right? Is the adversity, running, going through things, doing hard things, whether it be kids throw up, whether it be picking up and moving to Wisconsin just because, like, hey, we feel called to do this, or we're going to South Florida, or like, hey, I'm moving to Arizona. Like, do the hard, because that's part of the joy. That's part of the overall journey,
Yeah, what's interesting with that too, um, when we moved a couple years after we moved to South Florida, we looked back and said, this was absolutely the right choice
Mm-hmm.
because we would have been here eventually. Like every scenario that we talked about with my wife and her job, every scenario led us to South Florida. It just would have been 4 years later. Why
Mm.
would we have waited? Things in Florida for me were job wise were awesome, and there's some things that work wise with Laura weren't great at the time, but after we moved, there were some shifts and some opportunities that would have made our life a lot easier. But we'd already committed to coming up here because we knew in the long run this was the better opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for us. And everything I know for a fact that in 5, 10 years, when we look back and said, was this the right decision? We will look at all of these other factors and all of these other things and say 100% everything that we look back on would have led us to coming back here for this opportunity. Why wouldn't we do it as soon as possible? All
Yeah.
the other painful parts are then over with. And, we've made that play. We've done that. We already have that book. We wrote it and we edited it. We have it done. So why
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't we just do it now and get it over with? And because we're going to look back, and the only thing that we're going to look back and say is, why didn't we do this sooner? And so
Yeah.
why not do it now?
Yeah. It's again, it's interesting, the stuff that we labor over, and we look in the rearview mirror and pay it. Apparently, I'm on the car analogy today, but like we look in the rearview mirror, right? Like, and it's just a blip on the radar, right? Like
Yeah,
you see, oh my gosh, 5 years ago, like that moment, it doesn't matter except for the fact that it helped you get where you're at, like the
yeah,
laboring over it and all of that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's the. I know it's a saying, but it's something I've loved for a long time. Is windshields are bigger and rearview mirrors are smaller for a reason. Use them appropriately. You know, rearview mirror is just, you don't have to look out through the back window, nor should you if you're driving. Use the
Right.
rearview mirror, see what's behind you, make sure there's nothing creeping up on you, and then just eyes focused straight ahead, look through the big window in front of you, and know where you're going. Fortunately, we had done that before. Um, I guess we're still on our way to a million, but the hardest million to make is your first. The easiest is the second because you've already done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And when you kind of have that, so another I like a lot of saying, but this one is success leaves clues. So does failure. So if you follow the clues to success, you're always going to end up there as long as we define what that's going to be. But
Yeah.
when we define our endpoint, we know how to get there. When there's no endpoint, any path will get you there. You're just not going to be anywhere specific. You may end up somewhere you don't want to be.
I think that statement really resonates with me right now. That's one that I'm going to go back and listen to again, because again, that's the truth. To the point, back to the car, like you're driving somewhere, like where you're going. You're not just wandering around aimlessly, right? You know where you're trying to get to. But if you
Yeah,
don't, then it's just like, okay, this is a fun road trip. Where are we going? I don't know. Come on, like nobody's gonna want to go on that ride with you.
yeah. Well, you got to have the right person. They got to have that right. They got to have the right sense of adventure.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Well, I know that we're probably getting a little bit close. I know you guys have clients, you got stuff going on in the background, and I wanted to kind of look to wrap a little bit, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to leave the listeners, leave me, leave anybody that kind of tunes in with whatever you think is most important. Like, what's the most important thing that you want to leave people with?
Oh man. So one, you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go with others. So make sure, whether it's your partner, your spouse, significant other, whoever, uh, make sure they have the same or similar goals, and that you can all work together towards that vision. Take risks. Think more. What happens when things go right. Don't worry about if things go wrong. That's fear. Fear is just things that haven't happened. They may not ever happen. So go attack whatever your visions and goals are. Just go after them. When I say nothing bad will happen, the only things that are negative that can happen is you just learn really, really good lessons. So the only difference between people who are successful and people who aren't successful is the people who are successful have failed way more times than people who aren't. That's it. That, and just, I'm gonna use the title of a book that probably has had more impact on my life than anything. It's called Burn the Boats. It's by Matt Higgins. Everyone who listens to this, whatever you do, burn the boats. Do not have a plan B. Just go after plan A. There's a reason why in war and in conquest and everything, they burn the boats. There is no retreat. There is no plan B. There is no what if. You just have to go and succeed. That's it. So you want to go far, go with others, and then burn the boats.
Burn the boats and go with others. I love that. And again, I think you and I, we don't talk very much, right? Just through social and whatnot. And I don't know if you remember, and I'll leave it with this. Do you remember when we met in Orlando? So not
I
a problem.
It was there. I can't pinpoint the exact.
It was my first job. I was working with, I was at Houston. It's either Houston or Cincinnati. I came to stay with Eric when he was at UCF.
Yes,
and we met and we had drinks. I think it was at Yard House. And you were doing the golf training and everything like that. But and again, circles are so close and are bump up against each other. But here's one thing that I want to show some gratitude for you, because again, even though it was that was probably 2011, 12. Again, we're talking 10, 12 years ago, give or take, somewhere in that ballpark, that we've been connected, and I want to recognize you for how you show up, right? And again, I learn a lot from you by how you show up, by how you interact, and I think that you are a tremendous human being, and I think that you are inspirational to so many, and I want to encourage you to keep going, right? How you're raising your kids, how you are a partner to your wife, all of these things, a business owner, I want to recognize you and let you know that you are an inspiration, and that anybody that is listening to this, I want to make sure that they go follow you and support you on your journey, because again, you've helped me along the way, even when you really haven't known it. So I wanted to make sure that I recognize you for that.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. I forgot. Funny story. Eric and I will joke about this. Almost everyone that we ended up, so background, one of my best friends, Eric Peterson, that's how we met.
I'll have to get him. I got to get him on here.
Yeah, you do. So Eric was coaching at USF when I was at Georgetown, and we were playing. We were travel partners. Well, we ran into each other recruiting the summer before, realized that we had played against each other in college, and we were the only two males on staff at Georgetown and USF. So we would always run into each other on road trips, and our teams were awful that year. I think we were 4-25, and they were like 4-20 something. And one of their wins was against us. We absolutely got throttled in Tampa. But we'd always go hang out together and talk volleyball. And then when I left Florida State, he left USF. We lived together for 5 years. We were beach partners. And one of the big jokes was anyone who came staying with us would end up passed out on our couch. because we'd always have so much fun with everybody, that it was just like, there's some luminaries who ended up on our couch. But it was always just a big laugh for us. But it was such a, the volleyball world is such a special community. We all know each other. My players, I still know a ton of coaches. Like the players that I coach now, say, who are you getting recruited by? They tell me, I'm like, awesome. I'll call them.
Cool. Yeah. I'll pick up the phone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate, all of our conversations and staying in touch and the opportunity here.
Yeah, for sure, man. And again, I'll link everything in the show notes. Where can everybody follow you, find you?
So Twitter, if you want to find a bunch of, some training stuff and mostly me complaining about Wisconsin sports teams and generally being sarcastic. Mitch Sadowsky, MITCHSAD or WSKY. If you want more training stuff and some gardening and children, same handle on Instagram at Mitch Sadowsky. That's usually about it. I'm on Facebook too, but I don't go out there.
Yeah, that's an afterthought.
As the kids say, Facebook's for the old people.
Yeah, well, it is. And again, I am too. And we didn't even touch on the gardening. I think that could be a whole nother conversation, and strong, healthy living. Because again, I'm right there.
We're in the middle of harvest, and in the Midwest, gardens are pumping. We have zucchinis the size of small children. It's awesome.
Man,
is that what's the plural? Is it zucchini and zucchini, or is it zucchinis?
I would go. Let's go zucchini. Let's go zucchini.
Okay, or it could be zucchini. It could be like focus and locus.
Yeah,
like
yeah, 100%. Let's go with that. Let's make it up.
Done. Zucchini. We have many zucchini.
Dude, I wish we could grow a garden here in Arizona. I got to figure that out because again, the sun just kills everything. Ugh.
Yeah. My brother-in-law used to live in Phoenix, and they couldn't. And he was a PhD in environmental science. They couldn't get anything to grow.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, a whole nother topic of conversation. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll let you kind of get rolling. We'll pump this on out and have everybody follow you. But man, I'm just grateful for the time, man.
Same, man. It was good to finally connect on a longer basis, and we'll do it again soon, whether it's recorded or not.
I love it, man. I appreciate it, and we'll definitely do it again soon. Talk to you, man.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Peace, everyone.
See ya.